And if at least the history of by-elections is anything to go by. I agree that IEBC has had its own share of issues. The chicken gate is there. I wonder why they used chicken really. But generally speaking, if you look at the rate at which maybe like officials in IEBC, again, like you said, individuals in there, they could go either way. Sometimes, in fact, the same favorism and all that will not necessarily go with the conventional thinking that no, the government has a hand, and that's what the excuse always like using. Generally, at the local level, if there are any cases of IEBC being partisan, it usually just goes with how the players down here have influence in whoever is presiding over the elections. And again, it goes back to the embedded culture that we have. That again, much as such things happen, I think, I totally tend to think that Kenya needs an overhaul of our culture. Because we have come to accept most of these things.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
My only problem is that we cannot wish away the problems that are in IEBC, and these problems are largely to do with the commissioners. All the failures in the previous election, these are not things you can just wish away and say, okay, it's our culture. The truth of the matter is that confidence in the electoral body is at the core of all electoral processes. And if you want to look at it, especially from the background of 2007, Kenyans need to have confidence in the IEBC, if not in any other commission, because of the potential of, you know, given the mandate that they are given to undertake. This is the one commission which has to have exception to the Kenyan rule that my colleague is alluding to, because of what is at stake. And if you see what happened in 2007, you will realize that we need to put every effort to reform the IEBC today. And if you just go back to, for instance, the process that came out of IPPG prior to the 97 election, people have confidence in knowing that they have their people in certain bodies. If the IEBC were composed of equal numbers from people who we believe are coded and people who we believe are Jubilee, both sides would be comfortable knowing that there will be checks and balances in that particular body. But we have a referee in this particular instance who is largely believed to favor one particular side of the political divide. How do you expect people to accept the results of that they announce?
Okay.
One more interesting thing is that I happen to be privy to a case that is in court against the commissioners, a case that was filed by myself on behalf of my client, because the commissioners have refused to obey a court order that was issued way back in November. This matter is still before court. I can't go into details. But the truth of the matter is, these are the people that we are dealing with. If you hold the Bible and swear to uphold the law and the rule of law in this particular country in the execution of your duties as a public officer, then you are the first person who should respect a court order immediately it is issued. So when we have such questions and all the questions that arose from the 2013 election, and the chicken gate that they are alluding to, we know that there is rot in IEBC, but we cannot sit back and say, let's not do anything because these are Kenyans.
All right, let's stay with you, Sifuna, because you're a campaign manager for Jack Akimba, who dropped out of the race. If things had stayed as they were, then he'd be one of the candidates seeking to represent the people of Homa Bay.
Yes.
He cited security as, the reason why he dropped out. And in the recent past, we've seen other candidates, come out to say they're also fearing for their lives.
Yes.
Was it really a security concern? Because in light of other people also fearing the same and staying in the race, was it that significant? What can you tell us?
Well, the truth of the matter is this, that Jack Akimba, given his role in the previous election in 2013, because he was very close up with the Honorable Raila Odinga, out of the role he played during the previous election, he had received threats and he had actually had to move out of the country. He was operating outside of Kenya. And when he came back and the campaigns picked pace, he felt that the threats that had existed prior to his taking part in the Homa Bay elections became exacerbated by the fact that he was participating in this particular race. And we had a meeting with the entire team, and he explained the situation to us. Of course, for me, I hold the view that you cannot live afraid. The fact of the matter is that if someone wants you dead in this country, there's very little you can do. We just saw what happened over the weekend with the Honorable Muchai. But on the other side, it is very easy for me to dismiss somebody claiming that, their life is in threat, and to say, okay, we cannot live afraid. But the fact of the matter is that until this threat is made to you, directly and to your family, you have no way of knowing how you will react. The truth of the matter is that this country is not a safe country. And I don't need to belabor the point. Everyone saw what happened to the Honorable Muchai.
Let me say this, that we are into tough times and we must acknowledge that. Our politics is the winner takes it all. Our politics is about big money. Our leadership and the representation is about eating from ourselves. So why do you think that this is going to be a peaceful process? People fight because they know what is ahead of them. The more we make our representatives, I mean, this whole thing about election politics so lucrative, the more we will have violence and the more it will be do or die. So what we really are saying is that we have the wrong sides of stick, we have the wrong incentives, and for these reasons, because whoever passes through that post knows that there's a honey jar somewhere, it is not going to be easy for you not to find violence in our politics. We have very simple fellows who were elected the other day as MCAs. Today they are bulging across there. There is every county today when you go to, the issue of corruption is so wide, and yet we talk about it and we do nothing about it. We see these reports in the press. There are people who today, if you just look at what is coming out of audit reports, they should have resigned from offices. They are holding offices, and just what is coming out is such that they should actually say, look, sorry, I need to go until I clear my name. But that's not in Kenya. So the problem is that we try, sometimes I see people arguing that you say in Europe this is what happens or whatever. But we're in Kenya. What happens in Kenya belongs to Kenya.
You seem to have a very low opinion of Kenyans. Are you Kenyan?
What I'm saying is,
are you Kenyan?
I'm very realistic about who we are. I'm very realistic that our politics is about eating, and that people fight because they know what is in front of them. And so violence will not go away unless you remove the
violence will remain.
Yeah.
All right, Wandabusi, maybe let's go to the issues on the ground in Homa Bay. And based on the candidates that we have and what they have, campaign really is meant to be a period where you articulate and set the pace and tell us what you're going to do. Based on the candidates and what they've been saying, we've got issues. Homa Bay, I think, is one of the main sources of income is fish. They're one of the biggest fish suppliers. Yet, there is no storage facilities for the fish. There is no reliable market. There is hardly anything that has been done in that regard to even just benefit the people on the ground. Now, two things. Do we see from the leaders who are going to be elected, one is going to become the leader, do we see them articulating that, one? And two, do they understand their role? Because we've seen them talk about infrastructure, I'll build roads. Is that their job? Do they understand what they are going in office for?
Like I said earlier on, first of all, well, a number of leaders have, the candidates have tried to bring out the issues. Of course, lately, the best line to use is usually youths. We've had a number of them touch on youth so much and how they are candidates for the youth and everything. Then, of course, we have also been hearing of the normal lines, infrastructure. Of course, some of them are quite obvious and all that. But then, like I said, most of them never went further to really say, what role will I play as the senator? You tend to have a feeling like they were not really clear on what the role of the senator is. Because even when you talk about roads, like I said, you need to go further and say, where does the senator come in on the issue of roads? Where does the senator come in on the issue of the storage for fish, for instance, the water issues and all that? Because again, we are in the devolved government, and the role of the senator is actually very critical in the parliament, being the defenders of devolution. So at the end of the day, you need to come down here and talk about, are they really issues that touch on, like roads? Not all roads are county, fall under the county government. So then just saying that when I'll come in, I'll ensure that roads are constructed and all that, you tend to think that probably the MP is more directly involved in on the issue of road network, especially those that are on the national grid and are part of the national government, which are the major roads anyway. So when you come down, none of them was coming and say critically, this is a county government function. And therefore, how will you work with the governor? Because you are not the implementer again. Right. Yeah, most of them were speaking like when he becomes a senator, he's the one who is going to come and ensure that
That happened.
That happens.
Do they understand their role?
They don't really seem to.
Honestly, none of us candidates knows what a senator is supposed to do. And
is it that they don't know, or they're just saying what will resonate with the masses?
Exactly.
When they come and
Because,
start telling, when I go to Senate now, I will start debating.
Well.
Is that?
And the truth of the matter is that this by-election is not going to be about the issues at all. It is the people who bungled the nomination understood from the start that, for instance, for ODM to win this particular seat, they have to make it about Raila Odinga. And it is quite sad because people love Raila Odinga. People love ODM because of Raila Odinga. And even when they have clearly identified that the greatest Achilles of ODM is a nomination process and that they need to do something to put a stop to it, at the end of the day, when the argument is made that this is really about Raila Odinga, people feel like there is nothing they really can do at this particular stage. They just need to support the party. Because, and one of my greatest worries has been the very cordial relationship between the governor of Homa Bay himself, who has gone out of his way to campaign for one of the candidates, and the candidate himself who's supposed to become a senator and essentially be his prefect. You understand that in many counties we're having squabbles between governors and senators, yes, but you also don't want these people to be cordial friends. Because if one is a watchdog of the other, you don't want them to be friends.
All right, I'll stop you there for a sec.
Sifuna. Edwin Sifuna.
I want us to cross over to Homa Bay for a while and talk to IBC Commissioner Muthoni Wangai, who's joining us online. Thank you for joining us this morning. So yesterday there were reassurances and throughout the week that all is set in terms of preparations for this by-election, which we understand has already kicked off. What can you tell us in as far as what mechanisms you've put in place by at least before the polling stations were opened to ensure all goes well?
Thank you. As you know, Homa Bay has 326,000 registered voters, and it has 878 polling stations.
Right.
Now, I'm myself stationed in Beach, where we have about 36,900 voters and 132 polling stations. The constituencies and have various polling stations which are outlying, especially the islands. So we had to make special arrangements to make sure that all the voting materials and the personnel were there last night, and they opened today to voting at 6 o'clock.
Okay.
So far, so good. And we are going round where there's one or two hitches, we are putting them in order.
Are there any hitches that you've experienced so far?
Not much. We haven't experienced except maybe one or two clerks would not report in time. And we have made arrangements to make sure the polling stations are open.
How exactly is the by-election being conducted? Is it biometric? How will the tallying process be carried out as well? Break that down for us.
Yes, the identification will be done using the EVID, that is electronic identification system. And a voter must appear or must be identified with their biometrics, their fingerprints. After that, you vote. In the evening, of course, we close the stations at 5 o'clock, and the counting will be done, and we use the results transmission system, which we have already tested. We've done a lot of work to do the coordinates for GPS so that the results can be in the tallying centers as soon as possible after closing time.
All right, so even for the far-flung areas, there is assurances you have done your testing to ensure that all will be streaming in good time?
Yes, we have done the testing. We did the testing at least twice, and we're expecting no problems in this evening.
All right, we also understand that quite a number of commissioners are in Homa Bay, about 8 of them. Talk to us about the significance of that huge delegation in this by-election.
Yes, there's a huge delegation in Homa Bay. One is that we also want to go on improving our systems. So we are looking at areas where we can improve in the future, and also testing the lessons we have learned in the other by-elections. If you remember, we've done Senate elections in Makueni. We've done governor's elections in Siaya and Senate elections in Bungoma. So we want to see that the systems are tested, and Homa Bay will take the benefit of all that learning. And we are also trying to make sure that we have a very good environment in terms of elections. Unlike what has been going on, the place has been fairly peaceful. I think this time around, we hope we are going to finish in the same tempo.
All right, and what do you say towards those rigging claims that have been there ahead of these particular by-elections? We've had quite a number of people come out to say there are plots and plans to do the same. What has IEBC done or is doing to ensure that doesn't happen?
There will be no rigging. First and foremost, IEBC is impartial. Our personnel are impartial. We've trained them. And I don't think we should go by people claiming about rigging. Unless somebody wants to think they are going to lose, they should be not talking about rigging, because their own agents are supposed to be there, and there is nothing which will be done without their presence, and the whole process is transparent. So I don't think anybody should be talking about rigging at this stage. What they should do is encourage their supporters to go to the polling stations and cast their votes.
But you have done as a commission enough to ensure there are no loopholes, because that again could be a concern. If there are any gaps, there are those unscrupulous individuals who could take advantage. Are you giving an assurance right now that you have done all that is in your power to do to ensure that does not happen?
Yes, we are giving that assurance.
All right. The Inspector General of Police, the acting Samuel Arachi, did indicate that 2,000 officers had been deployed in the region. Do you feel that this is a sufficient number to facilitate this process today?
By the time they arrive at that number, we must have gone through the process. If you look, I gave you the number of polling stations, and that is 878, which is just maybe two officers on average per station, and I believe that would be sufficient, unless of course we have trouble, and we are not expecting any trouble. We are hoping that Homa Bay people want, at this time when they are on the spotlight of the whole country, to get the right image of peaceful people, and instead people will see the achievement they've made all the years.
All right. In the meantime, Oyugis, Kendu Bay and Homa Bay Town have been highlighted as hotspots, and they'll have GSU taking charge there. Are there any extra measures as the IEBC you've taken in these particular regions that have been termed as hotspots?
In a hotspot, the security will be beefed up, but hopefully we will not have incidences. Right now I'm in Vita, so perhaps you can also speak to my colleagues who are in Homa Bay. But we are hoping that just like in other counties, that Homa Bay takes advantage of this very short moment where the attention of the country is on them to select their leaders, or to elect their leaders very peacefully. After all, whoever will be elected is a member of their community. So they should be able to take advantage of this to steal the limelight in the country.
All right, as we wrap up, Madam Wangai, final question. One, is there any major concern you have on today? You've done, as you say, best you can to prepare for this, but what areas of concern do you have? And also, what time, in your estimate, should the electorate there expect the at least results to be coming in?
Provisional results, we would hope, will be available around 10. That is because we are expecting the RTS to be used today. And by the way, we hope that the weather will be okay. We don't look like we have a problem with the weather, so that we can be able to bring in the results from the outlying areas like the islands.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Muthoni Wangai, we appreciate you talking to us this morning. Thank you so much. Muthoni Wangai, who's a commissioner with the IEBC in Homa Bay, Mbita at this particular moment. Others, around 8 of them, commissioners that are around Homa Bay County this morning and for today for the by-elections. In case you missed some of what she was saying and talking to us about earlier on, she did mention that provisional results should be coming in by about 10 p.m. They say, enough measures in place to ensure there's no rigging, despite claims that there were plans of the same. The voters, as they go to the polls today, will be using the EVIDs, same as the ones that were used in the general elections 2013. You remember, at least in most polling stations. So that's what will be used in voting, and the results transmission system, which is electronic as well, for transmitting the results, indicating that they had conducted enough tests to ensure that the systems work well. Also, very important there, she did mention that as a commission, they've made sure that they have their heavy contingent there to ensure that they learn as much as possible and ensure this process goes best as possible in as far as, looking at what has happened in past by-elections and more so the general election, so that going forward their systems work as they should. We'll continue, of course, giving you updates as they come. As we continue as well with the State of the Nation, our panelists this morning, I'm keen to hear if any of you has a comment on what you've heard from the commissioner there.
Maybe it's just to say that they seem to be all out there, and they seem to want to learn, and again, this is what we were saying earlier, that they are only human and we should expect that they'll make a few mistakes.
Human Kenyans.
They go along. So from where they're sitting, they're saying they're trying to do their best.
They're trying to do their
and we hope that they actually do a good job. Remember that every eyes are on them. I mean, this is a by-election and it's more monitored than a general election where attention is scattered all over the place. So I'm really hopeful that if anything goes wrong, it is not likely to be the IBC.
All right, as we bring this to a close, to both of you, I'll ask this. Shamo Choda wrote an article saying that Homa Bay should teach ODM a lesson in this by-election. Yeah. Do you share those sentiments, Wandabusi?
Definitely. I really have wished that, and it will be for the good of the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, that he's shocked a bit, and he will be jolted into reality, back to reality. I think generally he's the feeling could be that he's taking his base, his support base for granted. Imagining that he can still go on imposing leaders onto them. So probably if his candidate was voted out, it will be a wake-up call for him to realize that there's need to, if, as my friend alludes, that he had no role to play, then probably he will realize that he needs to have a role to play.
Well, I read that piece by the Honorable Shemo Chodo, and I have expressed similar sentiments before. The only point of departure is that he seemed to argue that they need to do that to liberate them to liberate the Greater Nyanza from Raila Odinga. But Raila Odinga is not the problem, and that one you can take it from me. I have argued that ODM needs to learn that they cannot continue bungling their nominations and continue keeping the supporters. I have argued that even the Bible itself says that the Lord chastises those whom he loves the most. And people love ODM. It is a God-honest truth. You must chastise those you love when they go wrong. I wanted to see a situation whereby the people of Homa Bay said no to the nomination process, and it is not by extension saying no to Raila Odinga, because as I've explained, this back stops with the National Elections Board, which is a proper body that has been mandated by the party to run these nominations. Once again, the Bible also says that if no, it's the truth. Let me preach. The Bible also says that if your right hand causes you to sin, you would rather cut it off. I would rather see ODM crawling on its belly, having lost its legs and its hands across State House fence in 2017, leaving behind all these people who have led us into a rut, the people who are inside the party who do not want to see proper nominations, than for us not to end up there and sit outside the fence in one piece.
Okay, let me just correct my friend once again. Honestly speaking, and history is replete of examples. You cannot speak of ODM without speaking of Raila Odinga. Actually, those two are interchangeable. They're synonymous. They're contaminous.
I will give you an example. I will give you an example. You know, this guy, Raila Odinga, has such a big heart. I have never actually met a politician like him, and I will give you the reason I'm saying this. On the very next day after Fidel died, I went to his house to say pole to him. And when I was leaving, of course, there were so many people coming to say Pole. When I was leaving, he pulls me and says, I need to speak to you about Homa Bay because I've been told you are sulking. And I was taken aback because this is a gentleman who had just lost his first son, and yet he was so concerned by the fact that I was feeling some sadness somewhere, and he felt that he needed me to calm me. This is the kind of person that we are talking about, and that is why people love him, and that is why people love ODM.
That's why you love him. That was a good. But I want to make this comment. I want to make this comment that again, it's true that at a personal level, you must definitely have a good relationship with him. I mean, he's a human and he's a nice guy as well. I mean, nobody's saying he's just Kenyan.
He's Kenyan.
So basically, for me, I think that I don't agree entirely with what Ochodo is saying, because these elections, ODM will win it, because either way, whoever candidate wins these things is an ODM candidate. Now, because I mean, they're all ODM, only that they're different jerseys. But the point is that this election is teaching Raila and teaching ODM how the way they are doing business is taking them to the back burner, that they are going to have to retreat to the defense when they are supposed to be on the attack. Now, if they don't learn from this and prepare their midfield and prepare their attack and create the wings, then they will be back, they'll be going back to their stronghold rather than going forward to make new alliances. If this election does not teach ODM that you cannot keep doing the same thing and expect a different result, then they will not have learned anything. So Ochodo is simply arguing that there's a certain hold, and I've seen this, by the way. There are leaders in Nyanza who literally go on their knees. I mean, their knees just get weak when they're around and therefore these people are not capable of even taking him on and telling him, wait a minute, Mr. Chairman, this is not going right. So with that kind of trick, and he was using the example of Anyang and using the example of Orengo. Let me say this, that some of these people have actually also let him down. Orengo had the Ministry of Lands. Today we are still talking about the same things. In fact, there are better things happening in lands today than when he had it. There are better things, there was water, there was what? I mean, surely there's more that they should have had.
All right, gentlemen, we'll end it there, but not before I put you on the spot on who you're putting your money on. So just a quick rerun, if you can have those graphics on air, would be great as we wind up. So 4 independent candidates: Hillary, Lila, Luke Msama, Innocent Masara, Edwin Omondi. We also have Philip Okundi from Maendeleo Democratic Party, Moses Kajwang ODM, Fredra Bongo National Agenda Party, and Bernard Owor of the National Vision Party. Sifuna, who's your money on?
Well, because these people succeeded in making it about Raila Odinga, I see Moses Kajwang winning this by-election.
Okay. Just like what happened in Siaya, where the people loved William Odol, but they loved Raila more. That's going to happen again, and I see that happening in Homa Bay somehow.
So Kajwang.
Yeah, probably the margin will be different. Will be quite tight probably, but definitely. But I see Kajwang still going through.
All right.
Yeah.
Kajwang wins it, but ODM is scratched.
Okay. Our guest this morning on State of the Nation, Martin Olo, political commentator, Sudi Wandabusi, who's a lawyer, as well as Edwin Sifuna, an advocate, breaking it down for us, saying it as they see it on this Homa Bay race. You've seen some of those candidates. 8 of them in total will be competing for that seat. Over 300,000 registered voters, 878 polling stations, 2,000 police officers deployed, 4,500 polling officials, and I understand that a central or tallying center will be Farmers Training Center. So later on in the days at about 10 p.m. today, we'll perhaps be getting the provisional results. So do stay with KTN for that.
Yes, if all goes well by 10 p.m., we should at least get the provisional results, and we'll finally know at least by tomorrow, if all goes well again, or tonight, who the winner is. And gentlemen, thank you so very much. That's where we wind up State of the Nation, but do stay with us right here on the Morning Express, because as promised, we've got Fitness Thursday, and we might have to jump out of this and into our fitness gear, and we've got the fitness instructors. In fact, I can see them in the studio. They're already warming up, so I don't know if we'll get time for us to warm up and get fit.
Yeah, we must warm up. Otherwise, we'll be shocked into whatever it is we're doing.
Well, some of these things, you know, for those of us who don't go to the gym, we may not know how it works, but yeah.
Don't worry, I got you covered.
You got me covered.
Yes.
No problem. That's why you're here, right?
So also go change and join us.
Yeah. Make sure you change and get yourselves ready. Remember last week we gave you a breakdown of what you need to wear so that you do not have injuries or anything like that. So today is Fitness Thursday. Today we're not talking about attire, we're getting physical.